This is More Money with economist Steve Moore. Now, Steve Moore.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WBC Talk Radio. As all of you know, who are regular listeners of this show, there are 5 pillars of prosperity that will include things like free trade. They include things like low taxes, less government spending, less regulation. And one of the most important pillars of prosperity is stable money. I have worked with one of the top economists in the country, Lewis Woodhill, who has a new book out called, what is it again, Lewis? What's the name of the new book?
Engineering Stable Money. It's not out yet. I finished the draft, and now I just need to get it published.
Okay. And so Lewis has a formula for how we can get back to 3 to 4% economic growth. And the reason I wanted to have Lewis on the show is because this is absolutely critical to solving our budget problem, our jobs problem, our debt problem, and our prosperity problem in this country. And so, Lewis, walk us through why it's so important that we get it back on this 3 to 4% growth path. And I think a lot of people are going to be skeptical. They're going to say, Lewis Woodhill is wrong. We can't grow that fast.
Well, after 24 years of stagnation, I can see why people would think that. But this is not normal for America. America, since its
wait. So hold on. You're saying that since the beginning of this, we've had a slow growth century so far.
Yes, the 21st century. It just happens that right after the turn of the century, we went into a monetary era that I call discretionary chaos. And what I mean by that is that the variability of the real value of the dollar shot up to the level of the 70s from a fairly low level from 1983 to 2000. You and I met in 2000, which was
yes.
a very prosperous year, if you remember. And then for some reason, Alan Greenspan just lost it. It's really kind of strange that he would, after having given us the great moderation, would just kind of go off the cliff. And you can measure the volatility of something by the ratio of the standard deviation of the data points to the mean. And we went from having, during the great moderation, we had volatility of about 8.5%, which wasn't as good as under the Bretton Woods gold standard, which was about 6.4%. We shot up to volatility of 24.32%, which was worse than the great stagflation of the 1970s. Like I say, they just completely lost it, and it in a very curious way. So I don't know why they did that, but
well, wait, hold on. Let me just because our audience isn't economists. So
yeah, sure,
when you say he lost it, I mean, what are you talking about? What you mean? He let inflation get out of control, or what?
Well, if you want to walk through it, what happened was the Fed has never figured out that supply side tax cuts are deflationary, and if they don't add money to the system, you're going to get a recession. Reagan got caught by that in 1981, and then Bush 40, we almost had a recession after Gingrich's capital gains tax cut in 96, but Greenspan pulled us out of it just in time. It did cause the Asian currency crisis, though. But in 2001, when Bush 43 got his tax cut passed, Greenspan did not offset that by expanding the money supply, and we got the 2001 recession. And then Greenspan kind of panicked, and we had 4 years, probably the longest inflationary streak in history, from about late 2001 to mid 2006. And that inflated the housing bubble. See, if people sense inflation, they act to protect themselves from the inflation. And the way you protect yourself from inflation is to buy hard assets with borrowed money. and that was the housing bubble. Then in mid-2006, the Fed changed course, deflated a little. That popped the housing bubble. It started the great financial crisis going. Then they panicked again and reflated to mid-2008. And then they just, what happened was the Fed started paying interest on bank reserves on October 7th of 2008. That produced the most violent monetary deflation in all of U.S. history. To get to the second most violent monetary deflation, you have to go back to early 1782.
Wow. Wow.
And that just completely crashed the economy, crashed the financial markets.
Right. Yes.
And, and then
so Louis, hold on. We only have a few minutes here. So we are where we are right now. And the Fed is going to, they just announced this week that they're going to basically, there's de facto announcement that they're going to cut rates in September. If you were the Fed chairman, what would you be doing right now?
I would abandon interest rate targeting and target commodity prices instead.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, the Fed can target any one thing. In other words, the Fed controls all prices in dollars are the ratio of the real value of something to the real value of the dollar. So the Fed has control of the real value of the dollar if it wants to exercise it. And so it can target the dollar price of any one thing and adjust monetary policy to make it come out at that price. And it can
so
do
you're
that
saying,
with commodity prices.
Yeah. So you're saying if we just take the index of commodities and just hold that constant, because we know what that is in real time. I look at that index every day, and just hold that number constant. And by the way, that includes everything from gas to oil to cotton to copper, blah, blah, blah. And you hold that constant, then you said that's a kind of a proxy for a stable dollar.
Correct. In 234 years, that has been true.
Okay. So I agree with you on that. You've sold me on that. I think we should stop talking about interest rates and start talking about keeping prices stable by looking at commodities. In fact, when I was when I was nominated to be on the Federal Reserve Board, I was in favor of that exact thing. So that is step number one. Let's start targeting the commodity prices and keep them stable and forget about it. Let interest rates, let them go wherever they're going to go, right?
Let the market set interest rates because interest rates are supposed to represent the cost of capital, which is real.
Yes. Okay. All right, good. So now step two is I want to go back to my first question. Okay, you and I want to get to 3.5% to 4% growth. A lot of people say it's impossible. We just can't do that anymore. Okay, so Louis, we both agree that we need to have the Fed's target commodity prices instead of dealing with the interest rate issue, and that will create a stable dollar. But we want to get to 4% growth, or at least 3.5% to 4% growth. A lot of people say that's not possible. Once we've achieved the stable money, what next do we have to do to get to faster growth?
Well, first of all, stable money will itself get you to faster growth.
It will.
Because in the U.S., growth is a function of capital investment and nothing else. Right. It's not a function of the labor force. It's a function of produced assets. And unstable money causes people to invest less, invest shorter term, and demand a higher return. All of that stuff will unwind and give us higher growth just from stable money. Also, the U.S. will suck in all of the capital from all over the world into the safe haven. But basically, compared to so I'm hoping that just stabilizing the dollar will at least get us back to the return on assets that we had during the Great Moderation. Mm-hmm. From there, to get to permanent 4% growth, we would need to invest an additional 4.4% of GDP in real assets.
Yep.
And that would just get us back to the investment level of, say, the mid-'80s. We've done it before.
Okay.
But the way you encourage investment is to stop discouraging it.
Right. So I was just going to say, Louis, I don't know if you've looked at, I'm looking at this horrific plan by Kamala Harris. She wants to double the capital gains tax. She wants to tax unrealized capital gains. She wants to increase the business tax. I mean, that's going to destroy investment in this country.
It would destroy the economy, and then it would get reversed if she could get something like that passed, which I obviously hope she can't. But like, for example, remember, the Laffer curve. I took the Laffer curve in my book and put it on a rigorous mathematical basis, which would be based upon present value. And when I talked to Art Laffer about this, he agreed that the right way to do the Laffer curve is on a present value basis.
Yes, right. Yep.
To pay for eliminating the entire corporate income tax from where it is now, we would need 0.04 of a percentage point of additional GDP growth.
That's all?
That's less. That's all. That's less than the BEA can even measure. And so if you understand the federal government's actual finances, you would never raise taxes.
Right.
If a tax increase had any effect on GDP growth, you wouldn't do it. And that's
so
why
growth is everything.
Growth is everything.
Yeah.
I just, for fun, I took the CBO's latest growth estimates. They're saying that we're going to grow at 1.68% for the next 30 years.
Yeah, ridiculous.
If we had grown at that rate from 1790 on, if our founding fathers had bought into that stagnation thing, we would have the GDP per capita of Togo.
Yeah. So, look, Louis, we only have about a minute left. So this has been a fascinating conversation. So the bottom line, though, is we can get to 3.5 to 4% growth. I've seen your data. And if we do that, we will we'll bend that curve on the debt. And so, in other words, I think the reason what you're saying in your book is so important is that we can grow our way out of this, right? And so to do what Kamala Harris is talking about is 100% the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely. It's literally insane. Yeah. It assumes that you can double taxes and have no effect on people's behavior, and that's just not true.
Lunatic. So, and I know it's not out yet, but give us the title of the book again. I'm talking to Louis Woodhill. The book is called?
It's going to be called Engineering Stable Money and Permanent 4% Economic Growth.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, Louis Woodhill, thanks so much for joining. Folks, this is the More Money Show. We'll be right back.